Sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Cimnanya on I am Sim. If this is your first time of coming across this channel, sweetheart, kindly smash that subscribe button and turn your notification so you are notified each time I upload. And please give this video a thumb up. I appreciate you all so much, and I am saying a very big shout out to every one of you for the love, the support you all shower me here with. I am grateful, and you all are super sweet. So today we'll be talking something very important, and it's about a video a black woman made, and she was explaining that the time anytime white, that racism ends when white women declares it's over, and that is absolutely true. If this racism, if you want it to, like, maybe not eradicate it completely, but reduce to the barest minimum, is when you see them, the pop-colored women, come out to take a stand and say that this is what we are doing. It is not fair to black people. We need to end it. Trust me, a lot of things are gonna get, we are gonna get so many things right. But then a white woman actually said, like she was like, we are very scared. Why? Because we know that we are really going to be the minority eventually. With the way things are going, black people are all doing great things, making waves for themselves and all that. We know in years to come, like in few years to come, we will not be the talking point. We are just going to be the ones watching and looking, and black people are going to be the one controlling everything. And I say amen to it, because I cannot wait for that day, so they kind of feel what we've been feeling all these years and all that. And trust me, that is part of the reason why they do not also want CRT. They want everything to eradicate anything that we make the younger generations know that we did so and so things. And that's why they keep lying. Yeah, it was like this, but not exactly yes, history, it happened, but not as bad as they are saying it. And yeah, so not on. And also she made mention that most of them actually think that black people are benefiting from most of the things, rather why they are the ones benefiting more than black people, especially the affirmative action. I mean, she also said it is time to pay reparations, and that is on period. Let's get into this video.
Race-based problems must have a race-based cure. There's really no way around it. Years, decades, centuries of intentional exclusion based on race can only be remediated with years and decades and centuries of race-based inclusion. And I'm not talking about programmatic stuff, because what we tend to do in the name of advancing racial equity and trying to respond, not repair, respond to what has been eviscerated in black communities and in black households and in black people. What's been eviscerated, we respond to that by way of programs that do this, programs that do that, particularly in black communities. We see that all the time. What I'm talking about is policy, because policy broke us. Policy can only fix us. So hopefully, if you've seen my 5-day racial equity challenge here on TikTok, 5-day racial equity challenge, the last thing I talked about on the 5th day was the importance of policies that we have to be ready to die on the hill for if we are going to be about the business of advancing racial equity. So I want to talk about 3 policies. I think I talked about those in that last video. If not, here we go. The first one is affirmative action. It is the only policy that we have seen to date that acknowledges what has happened specifically to black and brown people uniquely, assigns a proportionally fair response to that understanding, and remediates the lingering residue from not having done any kind of purposeful, intentional inclusion of black and brown people before. Affirmative action is a policy to die on the hill for. The second one is reparations. Reparations. Reparations, it's important because it is the economic driver to accelerate gap closing of race-based inequities. And why is that important? By 2045, black and brown people will be the majority in these United States. And whoever's in the majority must also be well represented, at least in the middle class, if not in the wealth building strata. Has to be. In order for monetary policy to work and fiscal policy to work, we have to have whoever's in the majority represented well in the middle class. To date, black and Hispanic households have never, ever meaningfully been represented in the middle class. And that has implications for the entire United States economy, especially as we are advancing toward becoming the majority. And reparations is the only accelerated cure for that. Now, I'm not talking about doling out checks to every black person. I'm talking about policy-rooted reparations, things like tax abatement, specifically for black and brown people, free college tuition for, 100 years for any black descendant of slaves in the United States. I'm talking about home ownership, looking at covering closing costs for black families, black households, 100 years, maybe more. Those are the kinds of policies that we could very easily implement that would close gaps and help propel us into the middle class, which is important, as I've said before, and will keep saying, for all citizens in the United States. And that brings me to the third policy to die on the hill for, and that is teaching the fullness of black history. Some call it CRT. I don't know what you call it, but we have to teach what has happened specifically. Policy, structure, rules, norms, laws that required for the majority of our existence as human beings, at least in this country, laws, policy, structure, systems that required white people see black people as less than human. And the reason why we have to learn them, they have to be taught early as a part of American history, because that is American history. It has to be taught so that we can attach remediation to something, so that we can attach proportional fairness to something. Otherwise, in a world that doesn't really understand and know what has happened specifically to black people, structurally, historically, policy, law related, when we're talking about racial equity now, and we're talking about even DEI, many white people could believe in their mind that this is something for nothing. Why don't you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps? What's the matter with you? If you negate what the country has done and has been, you're under no real obligation to spend any time focusing on what must be erected to remedy it. And that's why the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action is so damaging, not just because of the actual decision, but because of the sentiment and the premise and the ideology that it's founded on, which says nothing has happened to black people that is worth acknowledging or remediating. And that is dangerous. So as you vote, anyone in your family, your children, your spouse, as you are voting in any election at any level, henceforward, if the candidate of your selection, the candidate that you choose, has no point of view in terms of how to move those three laws forward, those three policy priorities forward, then that is not a candidate that you vote for, at least not and call yourself a racial equity advocate. Race-based problems must have a race-based.
And she's right. People tell me all the time that if I just would stop talking about race, it wouldn't be a problem anymore. And I get how for white people, they wouldn't have to listen to the problem and they can pretend like there isn't a problem. And that would be very comforting and nice. But the truth is that the only way through this problem and onto the other side is to talk about it and to keep talking about it and to keep talking about it. And it's not always a fun conversation. In fact, it's hardly ever a fun conversation, but it's something that we have to talk about. What Dr. Lanier, and go follow her if you don't already, is talking about here is in the year 2045, we are going to be, white people are going to be the minority and in the United States. And racism is an economic issue. If we don't do things now to help reverse the damage that's been done over the last 100 years few hundred years, but there's a lot we could have done over the last 150 years, then this country is going to be an economic disaster. So what are we going to do? And she has 3 ideas, and the controversial one, well, they're probably all controversial, but the one that many white people, most white people, don't even want to hear about is reparations. And reparations does not mean writing a check to Black people, but it does mean putting programs and policies in place to help correct damage that's been done over the past 150 years. Things like free college, things like free, she mentions closing costs on homes, things to make certain ladders to wealth more accessible to everyone, to Black and brown people. So, and what she says in this particular video is that if you can't support the 3 things she's proposing, it's affirmative action, reparations, and accurate U.S. history, then you just want peace, love, and happiness for everyone without actually having to do the work. So that's the work. Those are the policies. There's more, but those are 3 things that are super important and critical to our nation being successful in the future for everyone. So, maybe, I feel like her philosophy is if we can get white people to see how they benefit from these things, maybe more white people will support them. And I'm here for it.
What would happen if 200 women from all around the country made a singular decision? The decision that wherever they are, racism cannot also be. What if after making their decision, they had a framework and set of definitions and toolkit and resources, all carefully curated by Black women who are also internationally recognized racial equity strategists? What would be different in American homes and in communities, in workplaces, in schools, in healthcare systems? What would be different if women, white women specifically, were to make that decision with Black women supporting them? Not only am I curious about that, I've carved out an entire program to make it happen. Let's talk about it September 19th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Register today.
So this is all I got from the stitches, and yes, let me tell you this, they actually know, that white woman actually said it, that in years to come, they actually know already that they are going to be the minority, and that alone scares the hell out of them because they just want to hold on to that there, and yeah, it looks like that is all they got, because Black people are breaking through and the rest of it. And yes, I love the fact that the Black woman said, teaching prophecy already and the rest of it. But then I am not sure there would ever be a time that they would teach prophecy already, CRT, in order to to make the young ones learn about about history and the rest of it, right? You all already see how they are pushing it, trying to make that history sound so sweet and so good. Like most of the things people are saying did not happen. But then I want them to know that if you are trying to erase somebody's race and all that, or maybe the history, all these are all documented. So anytime, any day you wake up, or you have your wake up call and decided to check on it, you definitely will see how it happened and who did this and who did that. So they really know why they are fighting so hard to erase so many things, because that top they have been on is somewhere they really do not want to lose. They want to continue to be there. And also, they do not want to feel guilt about all the things they did, or make the next generations, in fact, know what they did. So it is more like them also trying to hide all the things they have done to Black people, they know that history is one of their biggest shame. Seriously, they know it is one of their biggest shame, and they are trying as hard as or as much as they can to cover it up so you don't know. And not until they get to understand that most of the things they claim that Black people are the ones benefiting from it at the most, that they are the ones benefiting more from it. Not until the day they wake up and say, man, we are going to make things get better for these people. The day white women will wake up to say something like this, trust me, that will be the end of white supremacy and all this racism that is happening. Maybe not completely erase it, but I mean to the barest minimum. But they do not want to do that because they still want to have that edge, because they feel like they have edge above Black people and all that. Because it was even from them that I heard that Black people have low IQ and they have the bigger IQ. I mean, such wild things, you know. So this is where I am going to draw the curtain. Thank you so much for the support, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye for now.